What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Spitfire Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Lemunion, the Spitfire Coach, and today the sun is shining. Oh my God, I feel like it has been gray for so long, and I don't know if you're like me, but seasonal depression is a real thing, and it hit me hard this year. I think it hit a lot of people hard with almost a year of the pandemic, quarantine, stay-at-home orders, fear, uncertainty, political unrest, social unrest, economic unrest, you name it. Oh, we have weather unrest too now to add to your chaotic events bingo. If you haven't started one, I highly recommend it. Let's bring some fun into this insanity. But I wanted to share with you something really awesome that has been happening that I've been very intentional about, because it is something that is super important to me, into my creative energy, into the way that I feel about my business, the way I feel about my life and myself in it. And it's about connection. It's about connecting on a human level. As people who are busy, if you're a business owner, if you're a parent, if you are working a day job and like, I don't have time for anything, the need to connect is so freaking important. And it became really clear to me a couple weeks ago. I just started participating in this thing called Lunch Club. And if you haven't checked it out, highly recommend it. Lunch Club it's a free service. It's essentially like a matchmaker where you put your interests in, you have your profile, and they will match you up with someone who you're interested in talking to. So if your purpose is in talking to interesting people, or maybe it's in business development, or it's sales, or things like that, they will set you up with a meeting. And they have a platform that you can go through. You can read the person's bio. And at first I was like, oh, this is where I'm going to talk to strangers. But I'm literally like, Lauren, all you do is talk to strangers. They just don't know that you're paying attention to them. Yes, I talk to people all the time. I'm talking to strangers right now. I don't know who's listening to my podcast. I don't know who's watching me on Facebook Live. Sometimes I do. I see their names. But what better way to connect than having it set up for you? If we were left to our own devices of like, yes, I want to talk to a stranger, I'm going to go and reach out to someone on LinkedIn. How has that gone over? Not well. In fact, if I don't know you and you're sending me a friend request and it looks like a canned pitch, I am not going to accept it. So please stop doing that if you're doing it. If you want to make a connection on LinkedIn, then read my bio. Let's look at something that we have in common. Let's think about what we want to talk about. So Lunch Club does that for you. And this is not a plug for Lunch Club because they're not paying me. I just really liked it because the first conversation that I had was with a woman who was actually out of a job. And the coach in me was like, let's help her find a job. But that's not actually what she wanted or needed. In fact, she didn't even know what she wanted or needed. And I asked, how can I support you? What would be really awesome out of this conversation? She's like, honestly, I don't know. And I was like, should we just laugh? Should we just be human? And I thought, what a novel concept. We all just need to feel a little bit more human. We all just need to laugh. We need to let our guards down a little bit because we have been so stressed out, so clamped up, so protective that everything feels like it's a threat or it's trying to take away our time or our energy. But holy crap, we just need to laugh. We need to feel like someone hears me, someone gets this, and I'm not going into like a depressive rant. And what we found out is we both like to cut our own hair. That's right. During the pandemic, we started cutting our hair, and her hair was actually longer than mine. And she cut it super short, super cute pixie cut. But afterwards, I felt so great. Like, I just made a new friend. And I hope she felt the same way. She could have thought I was a complete loony. But in fact, I sent her the video of me cutting my own hair. And I also sent her a woo-woo meditation. But that's how real connection is made. And what that leads to in the future, who knows? But I feel like we have to shift from what can you do for me into what can we experience together? How can we both feel better in this moment? And if we're always looking at people as like, I'm going to do a deal with them, I'm going to sell to them, they're going to give me something, people feel that. They're like, oh, I'm just another transaction, I'm dollar signs. And we need to move away from that because we don't feel good doing it and we don't feel good having it done to us. And I think when we're in that mode of sell, 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 it just reeks of desperation and scarcity. And there's a lot of that going on. I get it. Listen, if your business has taken a hit, you're just trying to figure out, how do I get money in the door, keep my lights on, keep my power on, keep this thing afloat. But the best thing you can do when you are starting to feel scarcity is just talk to someone. Have a non-financial conversation. Don't talk about your business. Literally, go have fun. Go do something goofy. Go sign up for a class online. There are so many opportunities to do that, and you never know who you're going to meet. Now, is it going to be a quick turnaround of you doing business? Probably not, because guess what? Relationships take time to nurture. It takes like 8 to 12 interactions to build trust. I'm totally making that statistic up because it is actually built on an actual statistic where it takes 8 to 12 different touch points for someone to decide if they want to do business with you. So I'm going to use that and translate that into getting them to trust you. So it's not about you trying to convince them of, you should trust me because of X, Y, and Z, but it's saying, I am a human having a human experience with another human. Let's be human together. Yeah. But figure out, like, how do you show up as a real person instead of just as like a predator? And I think that's where sales has gone wrong, is it's so one-sided of like, you need this deal, you need this product, you need this service, buy, sell, sell, sell. But it's missing something. It's missing trust, which is what we have all been saying, I need to trust again. If you haven't checked it out yet, Edelman has their trust barometer. And here's the craziest thing. For like the first time ever, people trust businesses more than they trust the media, non-government organizations, otherwise known as NGOs, and the government. We have had so much uncertainty that we're like, please, Mr. Business, I trust you most, which means that we're not actually trusting them. We're hoping that they're going to give us information. Now, there are some companies who have really worked on transparency, worked on getting clear in their message and being aligned with that, but there's a lot of them that are kind of just glossing over the surface like, you can trust us. Look, we think Black Lives Matter too. Look, we respect women. We respect people of color. And then you look under the surface at their business practices and they're not actually doing it. Because guess what? You can go on Glassdoor and find out what the truth is. So I've kind of gone off on a segue here, but this is also an important point that I want to actually talk about in another episode, which is like walking your talk. So if we're not doing that on an individual level, like if we're saying, I want to build trusting relationships, but we're not walking that talk, if we're not showing up in building trust, we're actually diminishing it. We're destroying it. So the way to build trust is to be yourself, is to show up on the outside how you feel on the inside, because when we don't, the amount of effort that it takes to repress that, to bury that, it shows up as a stress reaction. So we might seem a little awkward, we might seem a little uneasy. And that's the sense that I get from a lot of people when they're not quite sure what to say. So if you can be that comforting space to like, let's just breathe, let's just chill, like I don't expect anything from you, like let's just get to know each other. But instead we're trying to impress one another. We're trying to posture up of like, I'm the expert, I'm so great at this. The reality is we're all struggling in different ways. We're just not sharing it. And when we don't share it, we're lying because we're holding it back. Now, should you air all your dirty laundry? No, because there are rings of proximity of trust. So people have to build that trust to get closer to that really intimate and really personal information about you. But if you are showing up as one way but you're feeling a different way, people can smell that. And it smells of being disingenuous and being fake. Like the biggest tell for me is when people are smiling, but they're like gritting on the back of their teeth. Or they're like, everything's so great. And then their nose start to flare, their nostrils do, and their eyebrows do this little weird twitchy thing. That's my favorite because I'm like, really, Sheila? How you really doing? I'm fine. Everything's good. Everything's so great. It's so great. And I'm like, cool. So you going to breathe? And then it all falls apart. People don't expect to be called out on this stuff, and I don't recommend it if you don't really know how to respond in that sense. But this is one of like my favorite things to do, is just kind of challenge people in new ways. So that's why I just said, hey, do you want to just laugh? Because she wasn't expecting it, and it allowed the tension to just like dissolve. So Lunch Club is great, but the number one tip is to be yourself. Be really transparent and clear about why you want to be on it. What are you looking for? What do you need? Be clear on how people can help you. The more specific you are, people can actually figure out who you need to talk to. In fact, the last person I talked to last week connected me with someone who I was like, that would be great to talk to. That person would be great to talk to so that I could connect them with one of my clients. When you can help other people build a network, they're going to think of you to connect with other people too. That's where referrals come from. So when you are yourself, when you're naturally connecting, other people are connecting with you, and you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from. But we have to get out of the transaction mindset. We have to start thinking as connection, as trust, as relationship building, and that takes time. So we all need to take a deep breath and just be patient and know that everything will happen in the time that it is intended. But if we try to rush it, if we aren't patient, then it will come off as something that we don't want. It will actually repel what we want. So the more that you trust and believe that good things are coming in, that you will be successful, that you already are successful, that you have exactly what you need, that things are going to happen as they're needed to, you can focus on what's most important, and you can see where you need help, and you can bring people in, and you can also help them in the process. So think about the energy that you want to show up with, how you want to connect, the type of network you want to build, and then use these amazing resources like Lunch Club, or maybe you go to your own network and say, hey, I'm looking to meet people like this. Do you know anybody? Because I'm just really open to meeting new people and having different kinds of conversations. Or maybe you facilitate that type of conversation on Zoom, or you create a happy hour or some type of a salon. But if we're not taking intentional actions to create the experience we want to have, then we really can't blame the environment. We can't blame, all of these crises and things. I mean, we can. Listen, they're a factor, but they're not the great determinator. The determinator, that should be like its own like evil villain. The determinator of our own future happiness. Like, there is a level of agency that we all have, even when we are in high levels of constraint. We are still in charge of what we think, what we believe, how we act, how we show up. We are in charge of that. We are influenced from things outside of us, but we still have that agency. And when we forget it, or when we think we don't, that's when everything falls apart. So focus on what you have control over. Focus where your power is, where your zone of genius is, where that passion is. And then look for people who also are on that same track or are affiliated with that, and start having conversations. What's the worst that could happen? You make some new friends. We all need new friends. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. You guys keep being awesome. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. I think we're on Spotify. We're like everywhere. So subscribe to the Spitfire Podcast. If you got a question, hit me up, Lauren@spitfirecoach.com. And I'm going to tell you again, keep being awesome.